Tyler, is that your duty here?
Who?
Outside?
No, I got no duty.
thrilled to have each and every to engage in professional development and start building professional networks. So that was one of the reasons. The other reason was we knew we had a lot of talent on this island. We have some fantastic educators with lots of expertise and knowledge. And we wanted to provide an opportunity for that sharing to begin. I am absolutely thrilled. I feel so fortunate. I have been working with the A team. Does anyone remember the A team? Yeah. There's a few of us a little bit older, all right. But we had an eclectic group, but each and every one were vital to this whole process and this whole happening. I'm so grateful, I'm thankful, and it truly was a team effort. So I'd like to, oh yeah, do I need the mic?
The live feed copy.
Oh, good. I didn't want them to hear that part. I got to get used to the mic. I would like to recognize each and every one of them, and if they can come down, please, to the stage. We have Amanda, Ann, Sarah, Jim, and Jennifer. If you can all please come down to the stage. And if you come on over, we'll get a photo op with our professional photographer. Thank you. Jen, I don't think she's here right now, but an amazing crew. Can we please give them a big round of applause? Thank you. I'd also like to send a big shout out to WASC and Dawn Rock. There she is. Thank you. So not only are they providing fantastic team training, which if you haven't done it yet, you should do it. It is fantastic professional development, and it gives you opportunities to go into other schools and learn about other schools. So we really appreciate that Dawn is here, and WASC is providing our sponsoring our lunch today. So big shout out to WASC and Dawn. Finally, and most importantly, I want to thank each and every one of you that are presenters today. It takes a lot of courage to stand up in front of your colleagues and to share practice, but we are so thankful that you are taking that risk, being a PYP risk taker, and stepping up and sharing your knowledge with us. We're very, very grateful. If we're in sessions, please remember the full-time job isn't presenting, so there may be some glitches, and that happens. But we're, again, very, very grateful for all our presenters. Can we give them a round of applause, too? I'm not sure. This is the latest agenda sessions map. So if you haven't scanned it yet, please do. I am supposed to also remind everyone to make a plug. We have 3 job alikes happening during lunchtime. Please check the schedule for where those will be. And if you had an outdated, I guess, agenda that said we had a closing ceremony, we don't have a closing ceremony, we can go right into the social. And I hope many of you join us for the social. There'll be yummy food, some tasty drinks, and an opportunity again to network. I'm a little bit nervous about asking this, but any questions? No? On behalf of AST, we are super pleased to have each and every one of you here. If you see some of our staff members, they have been working really, really hard to make sure that everything behind the scenes works well. Give a shout out to them when you get a chance. We'd really appreciate it. I'd now like to introduce you to Mr. Jim Laney, who will introduce our guest speaker. So, Jim.
Thank you, Colin, and I do want to give a special shout out to Colin and AST because one reason this conference is affordable is that his school has brought our keynoter and our guest presenter who's going to be leading a couple of workshops today. Of course, he's also working with the faculty and others here at AST as well. But they've foot the bill for that, and that made our conference much more affordable. So let's give them a big shout out and thank you. I'm very pleased to have the privilege of introducing Myron this morning to all of you. If you've read his bio or even looked at one of his books, you know that he's been a teacher. He continues to be a practitioner as an administrator in Canada. The nice North Americans tend to come from Canada. Not all of them, but most of them. Okay. And I'm really pleased with what he's going to be sharing with us this morning. Myron, welcome to Taiwan. It is certainly the beautiful isle, and I hope that your hosts have planned a couple of days for you to see a little bit of our beautiful island. It really is a warm culture, not just temperature-wise, and really vibrant communities with a special heritage, and I hope you can learn a little bit more about our island. And of course, our island is renowned around the world for educational excellence. Now, sometimes that translates to test-taking ability, but we know that we can do much, much more, that we can expect excellence beyond memorization and beyond test-taking ability. And that's what we try to do in our schools. And that's the reason why many parents have selected our schools. I hope that Myron's dedication in his words today regarding student agency and partnering, sitting next to students, will resonate with everyone here, inspiring all of us, especially our KAS educators here, in particular, to cultivating and learning environments that young learners can navigate with confidence, with success, and with a growing capacity for agency and independence. Myron, thank you very much for being with us today. Glad to have you here.
All right, before we go any further, Colin wants his water bottle. So. Yeah, that's important. It is, speaking of Colin, thank you, Jim, for the introduction, first off. And speaking of Colin, I have to say, he is a wonderful person. I have had the chance to not stay at a hotel, but rather hang out with him and his family. He's been a host in his own category. And I really appreciate it. So it's been absolutely wonderful. And I want to thank you and your family for the incredible hospitality. So let's get going. Welcome to Ask Them. This is a keynote that continually morphs although it is one of my favorites, and if I may say that. I mean, I built it. It took maybe 200 hours to build, and it's something I look forward to immensely because I think it covers some things that are important to talk about in education. But let's do some introductions now. Jim, I'm going to disagree with you on one thing, if that's okay. When you said we are up in Canada, the nice North Americans, I'll tell you something that I do now. Well, I travel all over the United States. I was in Buffalo last week, Northside Christian School in Florida. I'm going to be over on Long Island with ASCD Long Island on next Friday. I'll tell you what I do. I used to go to my hotel room and turn on the news. I don't do that anymore. What I do is I get to my hotel room and I go out and I find a place to walk to, a restaurant to go, and people to visit with. And I can tell you something right now. If you turn off the news, the United States is full of wonderful people who are warm and hospitable. Let's be clear about that, okay? Wonderful people. So, where did I grow up? I grew up in Rosenort, Manitoba, right about there. Rosenort's a really small, wintry community a lot of the time. The snow does go away in the summer, but briefly. It's a farming community, and my mom sent me a picture not long ago. And she said, "Oh, Myron, look, I found a picture of you and your brother." And I took one look at it, and a couple things I thought. One is, that's me over on the right there. Why am I bringing everything I own to school? That's a big bag. But then the other thing I thought is, why didn't we get the royalties, right? Like, the very first Teletubbies is how my mother dressed us. So now I live in Summerland, British Columbia, right there. Sometimes it's awfully cold. I'll show you what we build on our yard from time to time. Right there, our very own ice rink for skating. I'm sure you guys skate all the time here, but that's what we have on our property. I do want to cordially welcome you to British Columbia. I would recommend you come in July or August, and it looks something like that. Has anybody been to the Okanagan Valley in British Columbia? Okay, a few of you. I know some of you have looked. Have you been waiting all this time for someone to ask that? Yes. Where in the Okanagan?
Many places, yeah. I used to live in Seattle, so we.
Oh yes, yeah. You know. I call Seattle Canadians and Canadian, and it's vice versa. Like it's such a familiar place, Seattle. I have a family. This is my family right here. Ryder, our Labradoodle, turned 14 this year. My wife Tracy. My son Elijah is taking forestry at Vancouver Island University. My daughter Sloan is graduating this year from grade 12. She's going to go live in Paris or Montreal next year. We're not sure which one, as long as it's French. And that's me over there on the right. My kids, there is so much. We're going to talk about this today in the keynote. There is so much more to school than academics. Academics are very, very important. But what floats my daughter's boat is the arts. So I signed off that she could hold the beer. And what musical is this?
Les Mis.
Not Hamilton, Les Mis. Yes, they're doing Hamilton this year, though. So you're ahead of our time. But dancing is her thing. My son could not be more different. When I travel, I say, "Hey, I'm going to go to New York." I don't want to go to New York. LA? No. Alaska? Yes. So he likes to, this was last year fishing for red salmon, the salmon run in the Kenai River of Alaska, one of our favorite things. So I took a picture of my television on the way down here. It's a long flight. It's long, 11 hours, 52 minutes. I slept a lot of it. And then I land in Taichung. Am I saying it right? Taichung? And everybody calls the bridges by color. The red bridge, the blue bridge. Well, I'm color challenged. So I like to call this one the one that looks like ribs. It's an amazing bridge. This is just gorgeous. Last night we walked out for dinner. It's amazing. And just walking the streets. I walked hours of the streets of this city and was just continually mesmerized and fascinated at just how different it is from Summerland. Sometimes it's nice to have Google Translate. Like you walk along with this, and then it's the world's strange chicken. Right? You think you're going to open a door, and there's going to be a chicken going, right? But that's Google Translate for you. I have never fished for my dinner inside before. I've never done that. So I went with Colin and Ethan, and there it is. That's my very own shrimp. Yesterday, what is it called? Hot pot? Like I am now complete. Like seriously, it is so good. There's no words for it. And then there's other things while you're walking along where you would just love to have the story. Like I don't know what happened there, but I'm never going to know. That's at the corner of 9th and there's an overpass there. You can find it. Then I'm walking along and I see this. There's nobody around. No one. But these turtles. As a Canadian, I need an explanation. Like nowhere in Summerland do I walk along and go, oh, turtle. And like but here they're sitting in the water. Nobody near them. Anyway. All right. Some people are like, education, Myron, I'm here for an education conference. Okay, I'm with you. So a little bit about me. I've been in this thing called education 26 years, 7 of those at grades 4 to 8. A large part of my career has been the 14 years at grades 9 to 12. I'll warn anybody coming to my sessions later today, a lot of my experiences in changing my grading and assessment practices occurred in grades 9 to 12, but there will be some things for elementary teachers as well. I have been 5 years in this role communicating student learning. That's what I do for my district. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. 3 years on a provincial committee, which has shifted our grading system for all 600,000 students in British Columbia, shifting it as we speak. I'll talk a little bit about that too. And 20 years as a parent. That has probably taught me the most. Jim mentioned some of my writing. I don't know if you've come to enough boredom to check any of this out, but I wrote an article back in 2011 about retesting. One of my sessions is on that today. I wrote articles about penalties. That became a book. I didn't think anybody would publish that book. I kept writing about the similarities between fishing and assessment. And my latest is called Giving Students a Say. I work for a school district, and you'll never guess, we bought a drone. Yeah, so I found some way to use it. Here's what we're doing in British Columbia, everybody. We brought this in for grades K to 9, a scale, no letter grades, no percentages. Just 4 words that you will find on a report card. And that's emerging, which is initial, developing, which is partial, proficient is complete understanding. And this is an interesting word. I think we stole it from AP, and that is to be sophisticated if you're extending. So I was looking at this scale. Taking a good look. Anybody see any problems with the scale? I screen captured it and used it on 40 different slides. And that's when somebody said proficient isn't spelled right. We're not proficient spellers in British Columbia, evidently. So that was rather annoying. There needs to be an I right there. Like if you're turning something, what's wrong with it? It's the I, I'm missing an I. So I did that. Let's move this one in. Okay, there, we got the I, good. And the other thing we're trying to do, and anybody coming to my passenger to co-pilot session is going to see this, we're trying very hard to express learning for all learners in strength-based language. We'll find, if you look around at rubrics, you will often see the rubrics on this end say words like can't, or won't, or vague, or missed out. And one thing I've come to believe is that some kids deal with that language their entire schooling life. It's always negative. And then those become the parents who we say, come to the parent night, come to, no, I don't want to. Schools have always been negative places for me. So I think it's important that we're shifting that. I felt it the other day. Look, I felt it. So I was stopping at Best Western Hotels, and I'm checking in at the front desk. And like, you know how you look over at a piece of paper and you see your name there? I kind of glanced over. I thought I saw my name there for a second. So here it is. They have their own scale. And that is like In extending, you have Diamond Select members, and those are Crystal, Clinton, and Ben. I feel so good for them. Can you imagine being a Diamond Select member? And then there's Proficient, right, where you got only Diane. She's the only one there. Developing, what do we got? They call it Gold. David, Vince, Curtis, and Brenda. And then there's the rest of us. Emerging. Yeah. Valued. I found it funny. Anyway, okay. So I'm going to share a bunch of templates with you guys today. I'm going to share them for this keynote. You're going to find them at myrondueck.com. And if you're anything like me, you say, I'm not going there. I'm not visiting that site. Why? They're going to try to sell me stuff, right? I'm going to get offers for books. As we get towards the holiday season, there's going to be Myron Dueck Collector Mug. Right? I don't know if Grandma ever put spoons on the wall. Myron Dueck Collector Spoon just came out. And it's like, it's not free. When people, I say you can have free stuff and then they offer you deals, that's not free. So you're not going to get any of that, by the way. No book offers, no collector mug, no spoon for Grandma. You can go to myrondueck.com and I will never contact you. I have no idea how. So if you go there and you click on resources and tools, it's going to be like this. You just scroll a little bit and you look for the Council of Administrators of Taiwan Expatriate Schools, Cates, and all you do is you click on here. All handouts can be found here. Click on that word here. This is what's going to happen next. Click. And you're going to see a folder called handouts. Perfect. You're on the right track. If you click on that, you're going to see the 3 things I'm doing at this conference. You know how I've been mentioning my breakout sessions? I hope you go support the people doing other sessions here, okay? You don't have to come to mine. No one has to. It might just be me and someone else visiting. But you can still have the handouts from it. They are right there. You can go to any one of these folders, click on it, and that's where you will see some of the resources, okay? If you click on any one of those articles where you go, hey, he was talking about that marshmallow study during the keynote, it'll be sitting there ready for you if that's what you were interested in. Okay, fair enough? All right, let's do this. Ask them. So I'll tell you where this keynote started for me. I'm listening to one of my favorite podcasts by Terry O'Reilly called Under the Influence. He does Age of Persuasion and Under the Influence. It's about advertising. And what he's doing is he's telling the story, right? And the story involves the power of asking people questions. And the story went something like this. He talks about a group of American soldiers. They're in Afghanistan. They're getting fired on by a group of people who they thought were their allies. So they put up the white flag. They meet in the middle of the field and the commanding officer, the lieutenant from the United States, asks one of the elders, why are you firing at us? And the elder responds, well, you have not paid rent for this land that you are on. You're just occupying it. And he goes, oh, it's a financial issue. So he turns to his interpreter, go get a box of money, and then there's another commotion over here. And there's like, what? Money isn't going to solve it. Why not? If you pay him, then somebody else is going to start shooting at you. And if you pay them, somebody else is going to start shooting at you. You're getting shot at right either way. Well, what do you think we should do? And the elder says, move your tents 800 meters that way, and it's communal land. You'll be fine. Oh. And the story that Terry O'Reilly simply said is this. If you ask people questions, you might just be surprised by, and every once in a while benefit from, the answer. And that's the entire premise of today's talk. So I want you to think for a second. Just think for a second. What's a word that first comes to mind when you see that? What's your name from Seattle?
Kristen,
Kristen, what's the first word that comes to mind with communication?
listening.
Well, you just wrecked it.
She's supposed to say my first graders about how it's so important to listen.
What's your name again, sorry? Kristen, nobody says that. Like it wasn't supposed to work that way. Thank you, talking. No more asking her questions today. Miss, I have all the right answers. Anytime you say communication, lots of people say speaking, transmitting, whatever. Everybody but Kirsten, she says listening. And I never looked at it this way myself, right? Questions. I'm reminded of the Eiley Weissel quote. Questions unite, answers divide. Do you like hanging out with that person in your life who has all the answers? Don't glance at them right now beside you. It's not the right time. but yeah, exactly. Yeah, pointing is fine. But there's all these words in our lives that I think, like, they drip with finding out about each other, listening, right? Answering, seeking questions rather than answers. And if it's my cousin Alex, he always says the world should be built on curiosity. If we're curious about one another, we're going to ask more questions. So let's go there for a second. Curiosity, the value of it. So I'm sitting in SeaTac Airport, Seattle, Kirsten, of all places. And this guy is sitting beside me, and he's got this remote control, and he's got this laptop there, and then he just gets up and walks over to the washroom, bathroom, washroom, whatever you call it, the facilities. Okay? And I was like, he just left all his stuff sitting there. I'm like, who does that, right? And then he comes back, and he picks up his remote, and he starts flying again. And if you're thinking, well, you're wondering about why he gets up and walks away, who does this? Who takes pictures of the person sitting right beside them? I know I have social struggles, okay? I know that. But, I just found this really interesting. So then I said, what are you doing? I start pestering with questions, and here's what he says. He says, so here, I videoed it.
Well, so a lot of people, when they fly, they just do let's say they do one thing and they don't know what to do, so they just it just looks really, messy and jerky and whatnot. But when you get, if you take your time and slow things down a little bit, you can kind of make things flow a little bit more, and it looks a lot more controlled and precise, and I think it looks better.
So he flies remote control helicopters, and he's got the simulator on his laptop, but he brings his real remote control device along. I was like, that's so cool. So I asked some questions about it, about crashing, about the actual helicopter. How does it feel? Why do you think I'm asking this many questions? What do you think might happen? Give me a try. Exactly. What's your name? Austin? Yeah, if you ask enough times, like, you want to just try it? Yes, please. So the helicopter takes off on the screen. I press one button and it goes, and it just breaks into 100 pieces. I'm like, I'm sorry. He says, don't worry about it. It's a simulator. And it's like, what would that cost? Like, that accident I just had, what would that cost? He goes, $4,000. You destroyed that helicopter. I was like, oh. So anyway, he gets called to his flight and he's packing up and he mumbles something. I go, hold on a second. Can you say that again? It's taken me so long to come to that same understanding. Can you say that one more time so I can record it? Sure.
So the key is you can crash as many times as you want, as long as you're still progressing. That's the key point. And I think the crashes come and go, but the key is as long as you're learning from your mistakes, and you're not making the same ones all the time, then I think you'll get somewhere eventually. So that's the idea.
Have a good flight.
Yeah, you too.
So true, right? And of all places to say it, you'll get somewhere eventually. My flight was delayed, but I got somewhere eventually. But here's the thing. I had been writing about retesting, and a lot of my colleagues struggling with the idea of ongoing assessment and redos. And here's some guy with a helicopter says, the key is you learn from your mistakes. You're not making the same ones all the time. You get somewhere else. Oh, man, so true. And it's unfortunate for this person at 8:52 a.m. on that date that he shared his name. He was walking and, oh, sorry, I didn't get your name. Joseph Lai. Joseph Lai. So it doesn't take long till he was like, I think he was 25 steps away. All right, let's do this. But I have. It just takes you hitting one enter. So now before we go there, we should discuss this. What is internet stalking? So internet stalking is use to stalk or harass individual, false accusations. I'm not doing any of those things. There was one more piece though. It may include monitoring. That I'm doing. So call it what you will. So he's not far away. I hit enter. Joseph Lai. Interesting. One of the very first things I find this article. Okay, Joseph Lai demonstrates man's conquest of gravity can be recognized. That's really cool. Hold on. Case Western Reserve University medical student. No stranger to school, that boy, right? Make as many mistakes as you want. Medical student. Anyway, just saying. So let's do stalking 101. What would be some other avenues you could stalk someone if you so wish? Facebook, excellent. Okay, so now let's be clear. Friend request sent. Doesn't say accepted. I can imagine Joseph's at his computer says, "Oh, it's the Seattle airport guy again. What do you do? I don't know. Accept him. He'll probably show up on my front doorstep if I don't." So, I was speaking in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil for their Retool conference. And right before I went up there, I'm walking up to do the talk and I get a notice on my phone. And I don't know, you remember where you were for really momentous events? I remember where I was when I was accepted by Joseph. He sent me the photo. I'm a doctor, Myron. I thought you should know. And I go, yes, that's awesome. And then he sent me a message. I was in Brazil. Those are the chairs behind me. The keynote was about an hour before starting. And I said, Joseph, can I still tell your story? Most definitely. Feel free to use whatever you need. I'm doing well. I'm in the middle of my year of into the Dueck medicine residency. Those of you who are still wound up about spelling, might have a limp. And you say, how's your doctor? Good. Spells really well. Yeah. So anyway, that's not how I judge my doctor, but anyhow. So the hours are long. I'm in Spokane. Summerland. You're thinking what I'm thinking. Yeah. Let's do this. So, hey Joseph, can I come fly helicopters? Sure. Can I bring a film crew? Yes. So anyway, and one guy comes up to me and he goes, just so you know, this kid is in the top 20 in North America for what he does. Watch this. So I want you guys to see it. This isn't normal flying. So you just never know what's going to happen when you turn to someone beside you sitting in Seattle and you ask them a few questions. Why? Because you're curious. It's nice to find out about one another. So here's what we're going to do today, okay? I want to tackle 3 reasons why we need to ask people more questions. And I'm going to specifically reference students from time to time. And I'm going to try to underscore this, and we're going to jump outside of education for every one of these to look and see what's happening around the world on this particular topic. So our first stop is right here, average person. And the thing is that there's no such thing as average person, according to some people. And here's a question. Why is the term average useless when talking about an individual? Absolutely useless. I bumped into this in a few places, and then I was walking through the bookstore, and a book jumped out at me, okay? The End of Average by Todd Rose. I loved this book. I just devoured it. I'm going to wreck the beginning of it for you if you haven't read it, okay? So you're just going to skip the first 5 pages. Here it is. Todd Rose talks about the United States Air Force and how the Air Force in the 1950s had lots of planes crashing. If you want to go see pictures of planes in Taichung, go to this little museum thing. What's it called again? Tiny Village, or anybody been to this thing downtown? I meant to put a picture up there. It's a gift store, and it's a restaurant, and it's a little miniature airplane thing. the People's Military Heritage Village? Mobile Village? Somebody look it up. Things to do in Taichung. It's like 32nd on the list. I went. Anyway, lots of pictures of planes. So here's what happened. They're wondering, why are we crashing so many planes? So mechanics are blaming engineers are blaming pilots, everybody's pointing around blaming each other, and they go, hold on. When's the last time we measured our pilot uniforms? 1922. That's the last time we measured a cockpit. Okay, well, the uniforms are getting bigger. When's the last time we measured the cockpit? 1922. We should look at this. So what they wondered was, what's the size of our pilots? So what they did is something pretty, they went, there we go. They found 4,063 pilots. This is going to be a military test of all tests. So Myron, 4,063 images, please. Sure, there we go. Can you imagine a lineup of people that long going out the door and around? And you know what they're going to do with these 4,063 pilots? They're going to measure them on 140 dimensions of the human body. Okay? Leg length, arm length. There's 2. You got 138 more to go. And it's like, wow. So then this guy hears about it. This guy by the name of Lieutenant Gilbert S. Daniels hears about this study. And he says, I don't know about that study. What do you do, Gilbert? I work at the Aeromedical Laboratory. And why have you contacted us with concerns about this thing we're doing? I heard about what you were up to, and I don't think it's going to work. Why not, Gilbert? Well, when I was at Harvard, my thesis was a comparison of 250 male hands. And we measured these hands and we did all these dimensions and everything. And then just for fun, right? Like after we're looking at all these hands, and we've got all this data, somebody on our team said, oh, we have an average hand size. Yeah. I'm wondering how many people have an average hand size of the 250 that we measured. Now that we have an average, how many have the average? Anybody want to guess?
0.
Who said 1? You're so close. Got to go down 1 increment. 0? Somebody said it? What's your name? Will and Esther? Okay. So close, 1 or 0. They couldn't find any. And then the Navy people said, the Air Force people said, oh, you mean to a decimal point? He goes, no. It wasn't even close. There is nobody that has the average hand once you find it. And Todd Rose looked at study after study after study that's done this. It's really, really tough. You can find average hand sizes. You can, but what is this thing's problem? Now it's going to skip a bunch ahead, I bet. Is it the remote? It's not the remote. Just talk about that with your friend for a second, okay? I'll be right back.
Questions about each other.
What do you think, Dad?
We'll come after a break. I'm going to restart my computer at the break. It's not my fault. I don't know why.
Average.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty cool, right? No, I'm not.
VP this year. But yeah, all the teachers get this. You can choose where you put on the bed. That's up. But it's too warm in here. Yeah, it was kind of windy and foggy this morning. It's more windy than usually than here. Where we live in Tokyo. There's a lot of windmills. Wow. Yeah. Now we move.
We just keep those conversations going for 23 seconds and we're going to be good.
Because it's bigger. There are more students and it's bigger and better.
In like north part of China.
It's kind of like south.
In the mountain.
Now we're on a university campus.
So many buildings.
They had one that we're not using. So we're using that one.
So you rent or you work there. What are the old campus?
I'm not using it anymore. Not sure.
I recognize my friends coming.
Yeah, I think it was near Kamchow. So yeah, that building was I think too small for what we wanted to do. Yeah.
I was surprised.
Yeah, you can check out the building on the website. CHU.
In our classroom, right?
Yeah. I hope you had a wonderful conversation. Let's hope that this thing cooperates. So here's what Gilbert said. You are going to get 4,000 different shapes of people walking through the door. They're not clones. Some are going to be tall. Some are going to be shorter. Some will be wider. Some will be narrower. All these things. Some will have longer arms for the size of their body. Some people have shorter arms, shorter fingers. You name it. He said, if you give me 10 of your dimensions, just 10, I'm going to prove to you that you will not be able to find an average pilot anywhere in your data. And sure enough, when he crunched the 10 most important dimensions, it was something that wasn't present anywhere in the data set, nowhere. So if you're wondering, so are you saying that can I calculate a group average? Absolutely. Just be careful what you do with it. Because can you find somebody who matches that group average? Not necessarily. You might be like, well, yeah, but why is this important for us? Okay, so we don't take averages. Well, if we're going to take off on this notion that no one is average, we actually have to rewind back to the very origins of the modern education system. Right around 1906, 1905 area, these comprehensive high schools, large high schools started popping up all over North America and around the world, okay? And they were built upon the beliefs of people like Edward Thorndike. And I'm going to share with you a couple of things Edward Thorndike wrote in his books at the time. Here's one. Curriculum in classrooms should be designed to select and rank based on deviation from the average. So we should organize our people by who's average, above average, below average. Schools have a role. They should decide, are you a manager or are you a worker? Biologically, some brains learn faster and more efficiently. And then he said, here's what we should do with that. The purpose of our schools is to support those in our system who are brightest. That's the role of the school. His underlying belief was be like everyone else, only better. So here's what I'm going to do. You know how there's a pond, right? And the water's all flat. And once in a while, you'll take a little stone and you'll toss the stone into the pond and you get these ripples that come out from it. So here's my first question today. I'm going to shorten our talking times just a little thanks to my technical problem. But here's my question for you. Are we still feeling the ripples of this? It goes all the way back to 1905, 1906, the underpinning of our schools. I would like you just to the person beside you, by the way, anytime you are speaking with a group of people, the research is clear. We need to process our thinking from time to time. So I want you to process this for a little bit, about a minute and a half rather than 3. Do you think we are still feeling the ripples of this? And what does that look like in our schools if it's still there? And are there parts that are good? Are there parts we might want to get rid of? I don't know. A minute and a half. Go. Twenty more seconds, maybe? All right. So we could spend the rest of the day, I believe, on this slide in this room. So I don't want to dishonor your conversations. It's difficult to have a share out and everybody hears it. It's not quite the forum to do it. I'll give you one example of what I did at my own high school. When I went back to teach at Summerland Secondary and be an administrator during COVID, I finally tackled our scholarship system. Our scholarships at graduation were awarded on percentage score based on assessments. At 98.7, so-and-so gets this scholarship. That's all we based it on. And I think it was still ripples of this. And I asked our committee at school that I struck up saying, does anybody here believe that what we award is a reflection of our values? Yeah. So is academic standing the only thing we value at this high school? No. We changed the system. High academics still matter, but now all of our candidates write a letter for how they've helped the community, how they plan to continue to help the community, what their plans are, who's inspired them. We ask other questions. And I think we need to, this is just one example of just shedding a little bit of this. Not that it's all wrong, but it's to try to find a new balance. So I said we would cover 3 things. I want to jump on to the next one here, and it's called jagged profile. Jagged profile. Fascinating concept, right? Anybody know who this is? Anybody? Yeah? Like you just say it like everybody should know that. And just that tilt of your head, like when you say it, like it's Odell Beckham Jr. What's your name?
Ryan.
Ryan. Can you tell me oh, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. It is. So what do you know about Odell?
NFL football player, wide receiver, won a Super Bowl with the LA
So it's Ryan, is it? Ryan, did you leave the house today saying, maybe today's the day? That's awesome. So like, hey, Ryan, if I said the catch from Odell, would you know what catch I'm talking?
New York Giants.
Okay. So Ryan, do you mind if for everybody else's sake I just play it? Like you know exactly. Okay. Here, for all the rest of you, here it is. It's known as the catch. Come on now. Ethan, can we crank the volume? There's a reason why teams sell boxes of tissues, right? Like you're almost crying when you watch that, and you know, I sometimes I freeze frame these things, and as I was building this keynote, I had this freeze frame, and I was like, I understand something in this paused photo. Anybody see anything that jumps out at them being a little odd? And I know there's somebody who'll say, he's grabbing his jersey. For me, it's this guy. Like, can you imagine? You get home, hey Dad, did you see it? No. No, Dad, you stand right there. No, I didn't catch a bit of it. You're like, Myron, give the guy a break. He glanced away for a second. Oh, you think so? You still think that? You still think he just glanced away for a second? Not a chance. There he is. Yeah, that guy's jaw has never gone back. And you can get help. There's this thing called open jaw. There's 6 steps. He's all good. Okay. So the NFL, the NFL is a big deal, right? Teams have to make good decisions. They spend a lot of money and all that. And you know, if there's any important thing you have to look at, it's the draft. So let's have a little look at the draft year for Odell Beckham Jr. Ryan already knows all this, but for the rest of us, you've got this thing called a spider chart. Okay, now let's make this a little bigger. These are interesting things. For all the players that are in college, one of the ways they look at their abilities is a spider chart. Okay, now a spider chart is the center is 0, all the way to the outside is 100. So compared to every other wide receiver in the draft, this is Odell Beckham's spider chart. It's a bit like a fingerprint. It's very individual. He is not very strong on the bench press compared to everybody else. But what is he very strong at? 20-yard shuttle. He's in the 96th percentile. Okay, so now that we understand spider charts, let's look at 4 wide receivers from that draft, okay? The highest picked wide receiver that year was Sammy Watkins. There's his spider chart. We have Odell Beckham Jr.'s spider chart. We've got the Eagles there, Jordan Matthews. He's got a spider chart. How about we go with one more? Oh my goodness. Jarvis Landry. 0, 1, 2, 1, 23, 4. His highest is 93, hand size. So it's like, did anybody else grow up with Sesame Street? That little, yeah, remember that one? Like, it's going to be quiet here now. I think we're having microphone problems, but yeah, 3 of these kids are kind of the same. Look at these kids here. These 3 kids are kind of all the same. All right?
And can you imagine being at the draft on your phone? My phone's down over there getting charged. But I'm on my phone and it's like, okay, it's our pick. We're the Miami Dolphins. It's time to pick. Who are you looking at? We're looking at Jarvis Landry. Oh yeah, what are his strength areas? We're focused on hands. Yeah. Oh, and yeah, Gilbert S. Daniels. Yeah, I know. I'm familiar with the study. Yeah. Should we pick them? And they end up picking them. Let's look at the numbers. Sammy Watkins, he's been to what's called the Pro Bowl in his very first year. He had 125 receptions, 15 touchdowns, not bad. How was Odell? Odell's very strong, Pro Bowl and first team All-Pro. Jordan Matthews is fine. He caught more footballs than I did in the NFL. And how about the guy with the biggest hands? Wow. There's only 2 people up here who are Pro Bowl and first team All-Pro. Who's got the most receptions? That would be Jarvis Landry. Who's got the most yards overall? Jarvis Landry by far. Interesting, isn't it? That's probably why ESPN called Jarvis Landry a draft steal, because most people didn't see it coming. In fact, when the Miami Dolphins were interviewed, why'd you pick Jarvis Landry? Because we believe it's more than just the numbers. There's a story behind these people. Just so happens Jarvis Landry is the youngest player ever to have his jersey already in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's caught more catches in the NFL in his first 5 years than anybody in history, with a spider chart that wretched. Maybe this is what Howard Gardner was talking about when he talked about students 20 years ago having jagged intelligence profiles. And guess what? We all have them. We're jagged in our intelligence profiles. And guess who else is jagged? Our students. Very jagged. So here's a question for you, okay? Can you think of a Jarvis Landry in your school? What, somebody who's caught the most catches? No. What I mean is, do you have a student in your school that comes to mind? Maybe a student you've taught sometime in your career who maybe the expectations weren't very high, but then all of a sudden they found their niche and it was amazing. Or they're not so strong at this, but they're unbelievable at that. Those kinds of things. And if you're like, Myron, nothing really comes to mind. Okay, fine. How about this question? Do we put too much faith in our numbers and letter grades when we try to describe and classify students? If the NFL cannot predict the success of a quarterback in the NFL, are we solid on our letter grades and numbers? Are they accurate? Take a minute and have that conversation. I'll come back in 1 minute. Okay. It's probably not enough time. I apologize. I really do. I'd like to have been sitting in amongst the crowd in like 50 different places there because of the animated conversation. I don't always do this, but does anybody have a thought they'd like to share about this? I saw so much conversation going on. Anybody? Yeah.
I think we put so much faith in numbers and grades that it's stressful for everybody involved. Students and teachers.
Stressful for students and teachers with how much emphasis we put on that. Yeah, I agree. All right. I think we got one more. Context. And I'm going to close this thing up after we discuss context. Context matters for all of us. My wife calls herself an introvert, right? Myron, I'm an introvert. Always says it. Until my son was a goaltender in hockey, and she felt that the team wasn't supporting him to the extent that a mother would appreciate. And then Tracy's screaming louder than anybody in the arena. And I'm like, introvert. Introvert. It's contextual, is what I'm trying to say. So for this one, I want to go over to a book called Persons in Context. And what they did is they looked at the Dueck Children's Camp. The Dueck Children's Camp is a 45-day residential camp for kids who have immense struggles at school. A lot of it centers around violence, antisocial behavior, and so on. And so what they did is they looked at this study. And there's a study they did there. So at the Dueck Children's Camp, they looked at 84 boys, 6 to 13 years old. And I'm going to give you a visual. Here's 84 boys, okay? And here's what they did. So they would pick a certain boy that a researcher was responsible for. And they would have a clipboard. And they would just quietly sit off to the side somewhere and they would watch. So let's just say it's Ryan, right? Well, I'm watching Ryan at the camp and I'm just trying to determine a very simple quadrant. There's Ryan, and here's what I'm doing. It says that Ryan gets aggressive with kids back at his school in Boston. So now my job is to find out, is he always aggressive with people? If he has a positive interaction with an adult, does that go bad? How about a positive with a peer? So what they found is as they were observing 167 hours per person, they found that it was incredibly contextual. Ryan isn't pushy and aggressive with everybody. It's in certain contexts that he is. And they found this over and over and over again, right? And so this study that I found, they say behavior is very contextual. And then as I was reading about this study, they talked about a study further back called the marshmallow study. Does anybody remember the marshmallow study? I see heads nodding. What's your name? Terrence? What do you remember of the marshmallow study? If you were to give me 10 to 20 second rendition.
Well, I'm not sure if it's the one I'm thinking of, but it's the one where they leave a kid in a room with a marshmallow.
Like that?
And then they tell them, you can have this marshmallow now, or if you wait for a minute, you can have 2 marshmallows later. And then the adult leaves the room, and then they use that to determine whether they can wheel it successfully.
See, Terrence, for Ryan, it was Odell Beckham Jr., right? For Kirsten up there, it was, geography, and now your day was just complete now. That's exactly what it was. So they said you can have 1 marshmallow right away, or it wasn't 1 minute, just for the record, 15 minutes. The adult would come back in 15 minutes and say, if you don't eat the first one, you get 2. And you're right. They thought that, self-control is going to be essential. We're going to predict long-term success. Average wait time, 6 minutes. Okay. Now, Myron, I thought you weren't a big fan of averages. You can get group averages. Sometimes the number is interesting. The average wait time was 6 minutes. Just don't expect to find someone who actually took 6 minutes. That was the point earlier. Okay? So then I bump into Celeste Kidd. And Celeste Kidd has done a study entitled The Marshmallow Study Revisited. And I found this study really interesting. She went to a homeless shelter and she took 30 kids. And for 1 month, they spent time with an unreliable adult. Now you may be like, what do you mean unreliable? You might know one in your own life. You might. They're not cruel, they're not mean, they're just unreliable, right? Hey, we're gonna go, this is what they would do with the kids. If you guys are really good tomorrow, I'm gonna bring in the most awesome glitter. It's the best glitter I have. And then the next day comes, goes, the glitter melted in my car. It's like next to the glue. Here's some glitter. It's okay. It's not like the glitter I promised you. That's the kind of stuff they did, okay? Then they took an identical group, not the same group, but an identical control group from a homeless shelter and put them together with a reliable adult. And 1 month later, anybody want to guess what they did after a month of spending time with those adults? Marshmallow study, exactly. Now I want you guys, okay, this is your chance, especially some of you who haven't been a Terrence or a Ryan yet, but you're just like one of these times. Okay, here it is. The average wait time, what was it? 6 minutes. I'm going to put a time right here, and I'm going to put a time right there. I want you to predict. I want you to play armchair psychologist. What do you think the times will be when they put these groups through? 6 minutes, less for some, more for others. You get the question? You understand? 23 seconds to discuss with the person beside you. Go. Okay, that's 23. 23 seconds. Anybody want to in front of, like, it's easy for you to say later at the social that Colin's talking about, come up with your Heineken or tea or whatever you're drinking. That's exactly what I said up there. No. You got to call it beforehand, okay? Anybody want to, in front of the whole group here, make any predictions? Yes?
I'm going to go with 23 seconds for the unreliable one. That's you just gave us 23 seconds.
Oh, clever. All right. 23 for unreliable. Okay. Any other guesses out there?
I'm a bit left field, but I was wondering that both of them are just 6 minutes. This test was a whole waste of time.
Kind of like the morning so far. That just rolled off your tongue so easily. I'm concerned. It's a big waste of time. Oh, hey, I love it. Blame the person beside you. Okay, so identical 6. So you're saying identical 6 minutes, 6 minutes? Yeah, maybe. Anybody else? Yeah.
I think there's a lot more in kids than in a situation like that. They become resilient on their own because they cannot count on the adult. So maybe they're going to have that thrive that now it's on me. I can control my thing, and maybe they'll take a little bit longer.
Maybe. All right. Here goes. I'm going to divulge unless there's anybody else. Like, you never gave me a chance, Myron. I was about to say something. Yeah.
I think that the unreliable adult will yield like no seconds in the kid's patience, and then just eat the marshmallow. And the reliable adults the kids will trust, and they hold out a really long time, maybe 15 minutes.
So I sometimes don't ask all the names. I meant to. What's your name?
Laura.
Laura? So you're saying, Laura, that eat it right away here, but here it's going to make a difference if they hung out. Yeah. Okay, here goes. We do need to move on at some point. But, oh, by the way, I had dinner with Celeste in San Francisco, and she said, Myron, this is what we would call significant results in a study. Here we go. Half of the original, double the original. And she said, Myron, context matters. And I said to Celeste, I said, you know, she wrote the study. Like I said, you can find these things. The study had the most interesting of names, rational snacking. But here's the thing, okay? Listen, this does not apply exclusively to children who come from at-risk situations. She finds in her studies that students are incredibly sensitive to the reliability of their environment. And secondly, we may not like the decisions that our students make, but she said they tend to be incredibly rational. You may not understand it, you may not like it, but for them, it's a rational decision based on their expectations of the environment. And I found this really, really interesting. So I asked Celeste, we're having dinner in San Francisco. She's gonna be a part of the documentary that I'm shooting with ASCD. And I look across the table at Celeste and I ask her this. I've been fascinated with the marshmallow study for years. What compelled you to revisit that? Funny you should ask. I was working at a children's shelter in Boston, okay? And just up the road, there was a church. And the church said people came by one holiday season and said, we'd like to bring gifts for the kids. And she said, I'm sure that'd be fine. So they showed up at Christmas and they brought Barbie and friends and they brought cars. And I'm digging into my pasta across from Celeste. And she goes, instantaneously, Barbie gets a haircut and her arms get ripped out of her sockets. And those cars get absolutely destroyed. And I'm like, put my fork down. And she looks over at me and she goes, why? Why does that happen? Happens every time. I'm not gonna let you off the hook here, guys. 37 seconds with the person beside you. Why? Go.
Oh.
Okay. I can tell you all something right now. I'll tell you my guess, just so I'm going to throw mine on the table. I was like staring at her and I haven't the foggiest clue. They don't like the church. And she's like, that's not it. Ken Cornwell, the ASCD producer, said they don't like the stereotypical toys. Wrong. Okay, we both struck out. Anybody? Yes.
So they can get new ones?
Oh, wreck them so they can get new toys. Nice. I still want to do this with my class. We're going to play, gotta have 3, be nice to have 5. So there's one. Yeah.
If you have something that's really nice and shiny, someone else might try to take it.
Tarnish it to protect it. Gotcha. That's 2. Yeah.
Similar, but I said not necessarily protect it, but just the acceptance of it's going to get destroyed.
Oh.
So there's like a control aspect of I'm the one to break it, so it's taking my stuff and breaking it.
It's going to get destroyed anyway.
Where they're living,
Right.
they're worried somebody else is going to take their stuff.
Someone will take it, someone will wreck it. I may as well. Is that a fair? There's 3. I said, yeah.
We were talking about maybe they were never taught how to play with toys.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with that. How do we actually work with these? Yeah. Middles. Yeah.
More about values and pride, like somebody's giving it to you for no reason,
the values and pride. Someone's giving this to you, but you don't have a connection with them. Those are, well, if we're going to rank these things, that's way better than problems with the church. I mean, which was mine. I mean, you can't get more wrong than that. What's your name? Glenn? Glenn, that's essentially it. The first thing Celeste said to me across the table is, and she was like going to reach, she was having ravioli or something. She looks up at me, she goes, wrecking toys is fun. And I'm going, that's all you got? She goes, no, it is fun. If you've never wrecked a toy, it can actually be enjoyable. And it's not far off from, your name again, sir? We met earlier, Brian. Brian, it's not far from tarnish it to protect it, but it's destroy it. Because destroying the toy is kind of fun. Let's cut Barbie's. Has anybody cut Barbie's hair? Like growing up? Yeah, see, look at all of you. I mean, it was kind of fun. Like, it never grew back, did it? I mean, I tried, like, you're waiting, but it doesn't happen. That's it. But there's some enjoyment there. So here's what Celeste said, you guys. Celeste said this. And if there is one thing I try to remember every day in my school district, especially with students who struggle, it's this. How students act in any situation depends a lot on their expectations of the environment. They are expecting that toy to be wrecked, if nothing else, damaged. So my behavior is going to reflect that. The people from the church immediately said to Celeste, these kids need mental help. They need like a counselor or something. She goes, no, they don't. It's a rational decision. So just in case you're wondering, Celeste's research says that when students tune out, it can be rational, predictable, and healthy under 4 conditions. Here's one. If you ever have students who think they already know what you're talking about, they're going to tune out. There might be other students who have no hope of learning it. Maybe they don't have the language skills. Maybe they don't have the context for what you're talking about. They don't have the background knowledge. They've come from a school where this was the underpinnings of this wasn't taught. Or they just simply don't see the utility of the activity. And I think at conferences like this, we're trying to change this. We're trying to make our learning environments more engaging. We're trying to make them more accessible for everybody. But I'm going to tell you all something right now. We have a theater in our school like this. And sometimes I go to that theater, and if there's one single example of a place where I see this, right? I'm in my theater at Summerland Secondary, and I'm watching this, right? Imagine this is on our stage right now. I'm watching this. Now, this is somebody else's big moment. What musical is this from? Sorry? Not Willy Wonka. This is Mary Poppins. Okay, Superfragile, whatever, I think it was a Superfragile song. I watched Mary Poppins 9 times. I'm a bit of a Mary Poppins expert. It's because my daughter right there, Sloan, she was in grade 5 in the ensemble, and I just had to pick her up anyway, so I'd watch it. But here's the deal. I'm watching this. I'm vice principal of the high school. I'm only looking at one person up there. I can't take my eyes off one person up there. It's not my daughter. It's a person who we are trying to keep alive in our school. It is a person who engages in such incredible self-harm that we are just hoping after each weekend, this person is still a student in our school. And as a dad of a daughter who's in this ensemble, I know how many practices they have. I know that they do set building. I know they do all these things. And I'm thinking to myself, Heather Ayers, our theater teacher, she's saving a life right now. Why? Because of context. Context matters. Heather's doing this. She's taking a very black and white school existence, and she's splashing it with color for at least one kid. And then as I walk our hallways, Well, same 4 boys are playing that little role play game in the corner of the library. I know they're going to be there every lunchtime. And then over in Duncan Miller's calculus class, he's got the same 6 kids that eat their lunch there and they talk about calculus. And everywhere I go in my school, there's corners and there's niches for people to be safe, to be welcomed, to be valued. And I think that's one of the most powerful things I take from context. It matters a lot. And we're doing it, and we need to continue to do it in our schools. All the little things we do matter a lot. So we're not going to talk about this one. I just want you to quietly ponder this for a second. I want you to think, just scan that school population you have for context. And I have one student that most came to mind for me, and I'm going to finish with him, okay? His name is Johnny. It actually is. It's not a pseudonym. He's Johnny. And I'm going to make the point today that I think when we ask our students more questions, in my session here, I'm going to be showing ways that we do this. Again, I encourage you to go to other people's sessions, not just the speaker's one, because you got to support your local people. But I think that when we ask them, we increase engagement and build relationships. The only thing is I'm going to sprinkle grading into this one because this one required a grading decision of all things. And here it is. I want to introduce John Benny to you. This is John. Here's a few of his characteristics. Have a quick read. All right. So I've got this class. They gave me, my administrator said, Myron, we have an opportunity for you. And whenever a school administrator comes to you with an opportunity, you should just run away. Run far, far away, okay? Not interested. What they did is they gave me 22 students who had failed grade 9 or grade 10 and said, we're going to put them in one grade 11 class. They need to pass this to graduate in British Columbia. And can you teach it? Sure, sounds fun. So we get to the World War II unit, and I'm going to warn you some of the images. There are people who find some of the images challenging that we're going to do, but I'm going to tell you it's the World War II unit of my social studies class, right? Social studies, hey, Evan, Ethan, sorry. All right. So World War II project. I said, okay, we're going to start the World War II project. I gave them all kinds of options. They could do a poem, they could do a song, they could do a short essay, they could do a painting with a description, a model. Some kids would put together a model tank. And Johnny comes along and he says, I don't like any of these options. I said, I got 8 of them. Yeah, I don't like any of them. I was trying to be creative. Do you have anything in mind, Johnny? I do. Humor me. Children's pop-up book. World War II. That could be interesting. I said, okay, we'll get going on it. No, I'll never get it done in time, so what's the point? I said, no, Johnny, you got 2 weeks. He goes, no, he interrupts me. Sorry, Mr. Dueck, listen, I'll miss the deadline. I'll get a 0, and whatever effort I put in will be completely pointless. That's why I just say, screw it, don't even start. I was like, Celeste kid. Sounds like a rational decision based on his expectations of the environment. Thanks, Celeste. Not helpful right now. But she's right. He's making a rational decision based on his expectations of the environment. So I'm like, okay, let's think here. Purpose over practice. Sorry, purpose over policy. I know I will give him a 0 in my grading system at that time. I'd give a 0 if he didn't do it, because if he didn't do it, it should be a 0. But at the same time, oh man, would I like to see that book. And let's not kid ourselves. It was nothing other than sheer morbid curiosity as to what a children's pop-up book on the Second World War would look like. I don't understand why my kids are up at night. I read to them and everything. And so it's like, okay, Johnny. Is it Brian? Brian, you're going to be my Johnny right now. I said, okay, so walk up. Okay, Johnny, here's the deal. I want you to get started. I'm going to get, no, you're not going to get a 0. I promise you If you do any demonstration of learning at all, I will not give you a 0. I promise you that. Yeah, but I'm not going to get it done. That's okay. Hang on. I propose that I will grade your pop-up book 2 weeks from now on the due date. It's not going to be done. I know, you've been perfectly clear about that. How about I reassess it when you consider it done, the course ends, or we have run out of time on the planet? Like I need to have this book. And he goes, And all the rest of the students are listening. What are you going to do, Dueck? What are you going to do? Yeah, deal. I'll do that. He goes, fine. Got any thread? Thread? Yeah. So I wrote the textiles teacher, please give Johnny some thread. No questions asked. He comes back. I'll fast forward a bit. I smuggled a pop-up book out of my house for my kids, right past the breakfast table like this. I brought in Bouncy Bouncy Bear for him. He spent an entire class going around the class going, yeah. And I'm over there looking at this going, sucker, across my head, right? 6 weeks later, he'd come in with his skateboard sometimes, got a box, glue, thread, bit of a mess. But I saw it coming together. And I said, Johnny, I need that book. Why? I want to take the book. Take it where? I visit conferences from time to time, and I wouldn't mind if I could bring it. No, I'm not having any teachers see my book, and certainly not going out of the country. Where do you like to eat lunch? He goes, what's that got to do? It was a real simple question, Johnny. Where do you like to eat lunch? Wendy's. All right. How many Baconators say that book is mine and done in a week? Now, if you guys leave the conference going, you know what the guy said at the conference, you should pay your kids for their assignments. No, I'm not saying that. I want that book, mine, and I can take it anywhere I want. He goes, 3. I said, fine. So I go to Wendy's, I buy a gift card, not cash. We don't have to discuss that. I buy a card and I bring it to class, I put it on his desk, and I slide it, and he reaches for it, and I pull it back. It was not my first rodeo, pal. You show me a book, and this card is yours. I videoed the book, and I brought it. Again, some of these historical things, maybe they're symbolic, and they're sometimes troubling, so I just warn you. The rise of dictators. Hitler stands up in Germany, Stalin stands up in the USSR. Called the rise of dictators. Blitzkrieg. The lightning war. Anthony Bever writes about, in the book Stalingrad, he writes about the Russians training dogs to eat underneath tanks. So when they would run underneath the tank, Big Bertha, the largest gun ever made, fires a shell 23 kilometers. It's the weight of a Volkswagen Beetle. This is probably the most troubling page. I told you his name was John. It's the only thing he ever allegedly put his name on. A year later, Johnny takes physics, and he comes walking in at the end of the year. He never took my class with me, and he said, he comes walking in at the end of the year, and he goes, hey, Mr. Dueck. Hey, Johnny, how are things? Great. What do you got behind your back? We got a project in physics, Mr. Dueck. 3 Baconators, and it's yours. This one's only 1 page long. For those of you who are interested in the physics equations, they're right here, show your work, all that kind of thing. Only 1 page. A house stands up, 3-dimensional, perfect house line. There's a little thing on a piece of thread. You can pull it, it goes back and forth. Johnny never graduated from our high school. He left school early, nobody knows where he went. 3 years later, I shifted schools. I'll be real quick, I got 2 minutes and I'm done. I shift schools. I walk into my office at Penticton Secondary School, and here's a young man sitting there, Johnny. I go, Johnny, how are you? Good, Mr. Dueck, how are you? Where have you been? Been on the oil rigs. Huh, what brings you to town? Wondered if you wanted to go for lunch. Just calls it the gazebo. I always wish I'd asked you a question, Johnny. Ask it. No, I want to film it. I want to film what? Your answer. Got a camera? I said I will tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Would you be here at 3 o'clock tomorrow? We'll go to Wendy's after. I have one question for you. Sure.
So after you were finished my class, you took a physics class, I think, or applied science with Mr. Hall? Yeah. You came back to show me your pop-up book in physics, the snowboarder? Yeah, it was him on a sled. Why did you bring that back to me?
I think you and me both have a really unhealthy obsession with pop-up books. Either you're faking it, that you have this, or you have that interest in my thing, and that's why you did so well as a teacher, because you can either feign interest in the student, or you actually were interested, which is even better. Being genuinely interested in what students are interested in as well that's like the building blocks of a relationship, sharing interest. And that's probably why I tried harder in your class, because I took an interest in what I'm interested in. And also you paid me.
Okay. Quick update on John. This is hot off the press. I'm big into cooking behind my house. I have I'm an unhealthy obsession with pop-up books and an unhealthy obsession with cooking outdoors. Okay, I get that. I built this thing in my welding shop, and I did all the lighting in this metal plumbing tubes. So I'm at the store, I'm buying parts, and beside me I hear, Mr. Dueck. Johnny now runs his own plumbing company. He's got 2 kids, and he speaks well of school to those kids. He is impacting their expectations of environment. So we've got all these students in our schools. What does the Air Force do when you can't find an average pilot? You adjust the cockpit to meet the individual. Our cars, our aircraft, our seats in the plane, we all do it. Here's my conclusion, folks. Maybe building relationships, like Johnny says, is the most important role we have. And I think that listening, asking questions, and being aware of how we're all unique is incredibly powerful. My greatest fear always is I don't waste your time. I hope this has been something valuable for you here today. You have no idea how much I appreciate visiting this island and your region. Thank you.
Again, big round of applause for Myron for a thought-provoking and kind of funny presentation. Thank you.
I think it's only right when you visit a region to give a gift. So, dear Annalie, this is your very own Giving Students a Say.
thanks for a wonderful visit, Myron.
All right, this guy just talked forever, so we're a little bit, we're going to be flexible a little bit. The sessions are starting in 5 minutes, so you can have a little less time to grab your snack, but please do grab a snack, grab something on the way. Enjoy today, and we'll see you later on throughout the day. Thank you so much for coming again.